to the year 2002 and at the time, very fledgling promotion known as Ring of Honor. So
Ring of Honor!
This match, if I was talking about some of my favorite Ring of Honor matches, this one would be near the top, maybe at the top. I would have to really think about that. But this is Samoa Joe versus Low-Ki in a... did either of you remember what they called it? Was it just a fight without honor?
The Battle Without Honor.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fight without honor, but I guess I don't remember that concept. I think it was kind of just... They were doing that weird, like, everything had to be...
They were doing the handshake thing, and I think this just, like, went through the rules.
Yeah.
So pretty much to set this match up with little angles, Low-Ki had just lost the ROH Championship to Xavier the show before, and he was fighting with Christopher Daniels' group called The Prophecy at the time. So pretty much what happens going into this is they hired Samoa Joe pretty much just to beat up Low-Ki, is what the angle is here.
Right.
So, I'm going to get some of the bad things out of the way first. The announcing in this match is god-awful. God-awful.
One of the announcers has a habit of Yoda speaking, as they would say, such and such is Samoa Joe, or such and such is Low-Ki. And it's like, dude, what? That, to me... And I don't know how true this is, but to me, that's a sign of an announcer trying too hard and reaching too far.
ROH had some really terrible announcers for the first, couple years. And then, I would say this isn't shot particularly well either, I think, which is another shot against it. So, with those out of the way, the thing I really like about this is this...
Wait, I gotta put one more thing in there to get out of the way. This is a personal bias. God, I hate Low-Ki. I'm done. I'm done.
I don't think he was particularly bad in this match.
Maybe not, but this match is not why I hate Low-Ki.
Okay.
I hate Low-Ki because I have seen, the very first Ring of Honor show. I know I talked about it last podcast. Where the main was Low-Ki, Christopher Daniels, and Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, whatever you know him as now. Low-Ki didn't stay down and sell the entire match. The whole match was Low-Ki versus one of the other guys. He didn't protect the people he worked with. He just haul off and kick people in the face. And then he would get pissy if people were putting receipts on him. Mm-hmm. He took himself entirely too seriously. He was a dick who burned bridges pretty much everywhere he went.
Now he's still doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just hate Low-Ki.
I will say, though, I have a lot of issues with him, but I do love his current gimmick where he, wears the suit and tie and the gloves when he wrestles.
Oh, he looks
to be Agent 47?
Yeah, he looks... Yeah, I was about to say that. He looks just like Agent 47 from Hitman. It's like the Hitman
But
it's like a Hitman cosplay, really.
The cool thing, though, is he does, spots with his ties. A lot of times guys will, pull him off the top rope by his tie and stuff, which is fun. But... Anyway, so we kind of talked about the grime and the grit of that Hansen and Andre match, and I think this also has that going where you're kind of not sure if they're not just getting pissed off and stiffing each other for real, and it has there's a very uncooperative there's a very uncooperative feel to it, which I think really adds to it, and it's really hard to give a blow by blow because pretty much what this match is it's pretty much Low-Ki and Joe just beating the piss out of each other.
That's a very accurate description.
There's really most of the matches strikes. It's not even wrestling per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's some.
Joe does his Joe does his kind of his swat, his kick swath thing. And I think there's a...
This is also, for those who want to watch this match, it's on YouTube. It's a very young, very blonde Samoa Joe.
All three of these matches are on YouTube, and so they're easy to look up.
I would mute the Low-Ki and Samoa Joe match.
Well, you're going to miss out on some of the impact sounds, so that would be it.
That's true. But man, they had to have been bruised up messes after this.
Oh yeah. Well, not quite as bad as PCO v. Walter, but I'm sure they did.
So, Shad, as someone that doesn't like Low Ki, what did you think of this match?
I mean, if I had watched the same match with someone other than Low Ki in that spot, I probably would have enjoyed it more because that's how much Low Ki has. Another problem I didn't mention earlier is, his I want to be a raging badass gimmick, but I'm like 5'7" and weigh like $130, maybe more. I don't know.
I will give him credit here. He was super ripped for this match, so it was at least...
he was super ripped. But if you're gonna have some, Joe coming in to murder him makes sense. You look at him, you look at Joe, and it's like, I know that you're super ripped and all that kind of stuff, but you look. When we had Alex Angel on a while back, his point about, how hard it would be to buy Finn Balor going over Lesnar, that's the dynamic that I got out of this. And Low Ki just wanting to be, hold on, let me see if I just want to be the super ass kicker guy. And like, dude, you ain't big enough to be that. So you have this, and you want me to buy that he can stand toe to toe with Joe and take all this. Like I said, if it had been the exact same match with somebody else, I would have liked it a lot more. As someone who does not like Low Ki at all, I thought it was pretty good. He did have his no-sell tendencies, which bothered me. Early on in the match, Joe starts just going to town on Low Ki's leg, which I think they were talking about an ankle injury he had from dealing with prophecy.
Yeah, because they pretty much jumped him pretty bad when he lost the belt to Xavier, so he was kind of banged up from that match from like a month earlier.
Okay, so he has this, he has this pre-existing injury that Joe is preying on, and Joe's like locking him down. He's not just like single leg crabbing him. He's like lion tamering him with it, right? And then Low Ki gets up, kicks Joe in the head, like does a bunch of stuff, kicks Joe in the head, and he's standing there with his feet spread, the super badass.
What I did,
and we're hitting on the crux of part of my issue with it.
What I thought was really good about this match, though, and where if this was in the WWE or in a lot of promotions now and would fuck it all up, is none of them tried to really go for their signature spots because that would get in the way of hurting each other.
That's a really good point.
Which I think a lot of guys would get wrong now. Because they'd want to get their stuff in, whereas this, they're just like... And I really liked the last bit where I thought was really cool is like when they just kind of stare each other down, and while they're staring each other down, they just start pulling their knee pads down and taking their elbow pads off because now they just want to like inflict more pain on each other.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a pretty cool stare down, and I don't think I've quite seen that before in a match or since, so I mean that was pretty original.
I may have inadvertently ripped off something like that once, but it wasn't to that extent. Matt, it sounded like you were going to say something.
I'm kind of with you, and I was thinking when I watched this, because this was the match I liked least. It's not that I didn't like it. I actually did think it was a good match. I had some trouble, I guess, connecting with it. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to rack my brain, like, why am I not as emotionally connected to this match? Like, what's the issue here? Why can't I just, get into it? And I'm thinking it's partly because I didn't find it. I didn't really find it believable, like you talked about. And I don't per se have these issues with Low Ki that you do. I think he is kind of like he's a guy who, to me, he was good enough that he could have been something more than he ultimately has wound up being in the industry, but his personal failings and personality he sabotages himself so many times.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole show on Low Ki and his stuff.
Yeah, and I thought the match was interesting. It was kind of like a different concept because it was almost more like a worked shoot. I won't say MMA. I'll say more like what were some of the promotions in Japan like in the 90s that kind of did this? Was it like battle arts?
Pancrase, Shuto, and Rings.
Oh, that's right.
Rings, definitely, yeah. Like, was that Akira Maeda's.
Kara Maeda was UWFI,
Maeda.
I think.
Oh yeah, okay. UWFI is like definitely something I was thinking of. So it's like more like almost like a worked shoot type of thing. It was kind of like that, and that was interesting. And I also I feel not just because like I'm not a big fan of Low Ki. I think it was also maybe I'm thinking more. I just can't stop thinking about like modern day Joe, and I'm kind of comparing it to then, because this is a different Joe. Like this 17 years younger,
And this is
16 years younger Joe.
And this is his ROH debut, which I think.
Yeah, he's much younger. He was smaller. Still a great worker even back then, but I maybe I'm kind of conflating the two. But to me, I guess I don't think I connected because at the end, like I just didn't buy that Low Ki could beat him, right. Or if he was going to beat him, even if it was like he somehow gets Joe in a submission and Joe has a tap. It's like okay, that might be believable if you're doing this is quasi real. It's kind of a shoot type of thing.
Yeah.
But him just being like I'm gonna brutalize you with kicks and everything to where it's going to be a ref stoppage or I'm going to pin you or whatever. It's like that to me. It's just I'm sorry, I didn't buy it. Like
no, and that's part of Low Ki's thing is that he has to be that way.
I think,
and I did.
I think if contextually you had seen like the Low Ki matches leading into this from ROH, like and then this match, I think it would have been better because you would have had like his portrayal like within like that atmosphere to go by.
But I mean, look, even in a real fight, then what you have is mass and size matters a whole lot. And so in a straight up fight where they're not kind of working with each other, you know, Joe would have taken him apart. Like you know, they're laying it in, but they're working with each other. That's pretty clear. The thing is, that kind of size and mass is a huge obstacle to overcome. And I don't care how many 80s movies were about it. I don't care, you know, there's a crazy amount of training and luck that comes into having a smaller guy be able to take out a big guy like that.
I think better announcers might have helped this with that, though. Because they kind of did try, but they weren't good enough to really, like, stick to that for any length of time. Like, really... Because they kind of touched briefly on, like, the longer the match goes, like, probably it'll help Low Ki more, which I think if they had stuck kind of to that more and maybe been a little smarter with their commentary, it could have helped, like... But I can see your problems with it.
Bear in mind... Matt and I both said we don't think it's bad. I just have a bias. I can't get
and I understand that. Like he's a very hateable person sometimes.
Yeah. Just wait. Like this episode will go out there, and then we'll get a message on one of our social medias from Loki and be like, "Who's the one that said he hates me?" All right. Okay.
Hey, I'll say something nice about him is he was one of the best parts of TNA in like the first year.
Low Ki?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's a good worker. Like I've enjoyed quite a few of his matches. It's just I don't know. I just didn't buy it in this particular match. I feel bad because I'm not one of those people who thinks like, oh, the small guy shouldn't be beating the big guy. I mean, obviously if you're dealing with something like Rey Mysterio versus the Big Show, like you need to kind of contrive something if he's
you need some serious extenuating circumstances.
If you're having that much of a disparity, but I don't think that a guy like Low Ki's size, like per se, would not be able to beat Joe. It's just I just didn't buy it here for some reason. Like I don't know. I couldn't. It didn't work for me.
So with your issues, would you guys still recommend this to like another person, like for the?
It falls into, I would call it a category of spectacle as well. For all the issues I have with it, it is still spectacle in the way that they just unload on each other. So yeah, it's worth watching, and it's also very much a glimpse into what that era was like in the scene of not one of the major promotions. I think it's I'd say watch it.
I think I'm surprised no one's like ripped this match off because I think if like someone in WWE did this on a pay-per-view for like a grudge match, I think this would go over like huge on a big stage.
That's something I've kind of begged for in a few matches, you know? So, yeah, it would have been to have a grudge match like that. I think should happen more. I absolutely think it should happen more.
I have to say though, I really appreciate even indies like having good cameras now because man, like, ooh, this looks worse than the New Japan footage by a lot.
It's really kind of grainy, but I felt like that also added to the that gritty feel that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So that's that was good stuff.
You are right that the lack of polish did like add to the atmosphere a little bit with it.
Yeah, it's just God. I just hate low key so much.
I've had a very he and I have had a very back and forth relationship as far as my opinion of him.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, like, I get annoyed at him and like the way he burns his bridges, but man, even today, that guy can still go somewhere and like just pull some like amazing match out of his ass.
Well, I mean, he'll still, he'll still go and he'll do athletic stuff, and that'll be cool. I think I also have to admit that Loki had a bad habit of attaching like really cringy names to stuff, and some of them were moves I was planning on using.
Wait,
the Dragon Sleeper Camel Clutch.
but man, like that name WWE gave him was just the fucking worst.
The Cabal.
Yeah,
Wasn't that supposed to be like Japanese for warrior or something?
I don't know. It just sucked.
My impression at the time is he picked it for himself, and if that's
Somebody just be like, "Yo, man, like that ain't cool. Like, don't do it."
just don't.
Yeah,
That's not. Don't. Yeah. There's okay. It's. That's another thing that I had is that his trying so hard comes off as really cringy, and everything he did was a dragon something other or a something or other dragon, and like watching the finish to this match annoyed me too. And I know, Brad, you said that it's kind of a product of how he was being portrayed and that sort of stuff. But, in the course of this match, these guys are beating the crap out of each other. What happens at the end? Low-key basically punches Joe a bunch of times, and Joe falls down and gets pinned.
yeah, but could you imagine though? Like, think about this today. Like, so Loki was like the top dog there. Could you think of like someone debuting in the WWE and like Roman Reigns or someone pretty much has to kick them in the head until they're knocked out and pins them for like their first match? Like, it would be like that would be like debuting with a splash.
But then the thing I get out of the angle is that means that this hired gun you brought in to take him apart was not a good choice because he couldn't seal the deal.
Well, it depends on. It depends on because a lot of those angles, like the guy that they would bring in, weren't necessarily meant to beat them. They were just meant to soften them up. And I mean,
we're butting up against my bias is also influencing my suspension of disbelief, and I know that's happening. And I've already enumerated why, but it's the other thing that happens is in an actual throwdown. Yeah, if you're more fit, you're going to be able to go harder and longer. But if these guys were both going, like, if I had a match with a smaller guy, I would try and feed him multiple spots to balance one I would do. Because, me doing one thing to someone I'm a whole lot bigger than would be the equivalent of them doing like 2 or 3 things to me. And so therefore every hit that Joe landed should have been worth more than what Low-Key was landing. But to have Low-Key still standing there, punch Joe a bunch of times, pin him, and then hop up like, "Oh, I'm the super badass." It's like he didn't sell again, right?
I will say though, to a couple things of that though, I think they had. Oops, sorry, I popped my own earbud out. They didn't use the ropes, like they didn't do an Irish whip because I think they smartly kept that out of the equation, but that does limit the smaller guy getting more hope spots. And I tend to think if you look at the strike exchanges, Joe would hit one or two and Low-Ki would usually flurry attack him back. So I think they work that element in there a little bit. And
Okay.
Cuz even like the end, I mean, I know what you're saying for the suspension of disbelief, but I mean Low-Ki did like batter him like severely like to get the pinfall.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he hit some like knockout kick. I mean, he what was that, like 10 or 12 kicks probably like right to his head, like too.
No, it was all punches. It wasn't even well, maybe there were some kicks, but it ended with punches.
Well, remember though, he got his like head down right before that final flurry where he was just like pretty much kicking him like right in the
I don't remember, but I also think it's really crappy of you to do that to somebody when you know you're not going to get a receipt because you're going into the finish. So again, this is my bias showing. I know that. To our listeners out there, I apologize. I know it's happening, but it's like Thunderdome. I just can't get beyond it.
So I guess you don't want to watch the one where Low-Ki like murders Necro Butcher for like 20 minutes.
You know, I will watch it. It's just I know that that's a thing going in. Also, there's a very large spot in my heart for Joe. So it's
actually, when we do this again, we should watch Joe versus Necro Butcher.
Oh my god!
We should do a Necro Butcher hour sometime and do